Hello, everyone. This is Jackson Yuri alongside Jared Rigdon for episode 6 of the Basketball State podcast. Today, we've got a lot to analyze on one big topic, the Forum Tip-Off Classic, an exciting event every year in Indiana high school basketball, right before Christmas time at Southport Fieldhouse, always a blast. But before we get to that, some news and tidbits for this duo that dominates for Silver Creek. Trey Kaufman, who we talked about a lot last time, and Kooper Jacobi, both with some updates to their recruitment.
Trey Kaufman down to 5 schools. One of them was actually kind of surprising. Louisville not making the top 5. I think we talked about that pretty extensively, that was potentially one of the leading candidates, being kind of close to there and being a very big name. But IU Purdue, I think IU obviously expects to make the cut. Purdue in their in-state school. Virginia, North Carolina, he's been making he's been on some visits there, not official visits, but he's been there on campus. And the surprising one of all, Indiana State. Greg Lansing's squad makes the cut, and he talked extensively in the News and Tribune article about just loving Greg Lansing, loving the style of play, loving the guys that have gone there and had success from Indiana. So that was definitely the surprising one, but. Top 5 for Trey Kaufman, and then Kooper Jacobi, his running mate. A guy that's pretty slept on across the state, I think is not talked about enough, and is potentially lining himself up to be an Indiana All-Star, maybe. Big senior year, win another state title. He picks Toledo today over the likes of Indiana State, Ball State, Bellarmine. I think those were probably some of the top running favorites right there. Definitely in the mid-major scheme of things. But Toledo, Jackson, I think, was an interesting choice given the lack of history they have with Indiana players.
Yeah, it was kind of odd to see. And, I mean, that's probably a testament to how hard Toledo's staff, went after Jacobi. We don't have any insight particularly on that. But, I mean, if you think about it, over the last, decade, Toledo, A, hasn't really gotten a high number of Indiana players, and B, when they have, there hasn't been a ton of success with it.
Well, the last two have transferred out, right? Or at least the last one, at least Etherington transferred out.
Etherington transferred out and is now at UIndy. And then Gavin Bazoo was dismissed from the team and is now with Marion. But, I mean, even prior, Jalen Sanford, when he was there, he was a great 4-year player for them. He did really well. But if I'm not mistaken, there were 2 other guys in the 2015 class from Indiana that ended up going there. Chandler Moore from Carroll, and he transferred him. Kind of losing I'm trying to think who that last one was, but point being, really odd for that to happen, and nonetheless a Southern Indiana kid going out to Toledo is a little weird. But going back to the Kaufman part of it, Kaufman, such a surprise with having Indiana State in his Final 5, and he had mentioned the part of the reason why he had included them in the Final 5 was the fact that there would be potential opportunity to play with Kooper Jacobi and Jake Heidbreder from Floyd Central, who are 2 of his good buddies in Southern Indiana. He could potentially play and hoop with them at ISU because they both have offers there. But now with Jacobi, off the table for that, a day after ISU was, theoretically in it for Kaufman, it looks like their chances might have taken a big hit.
And the other name I mentioned dropped was Kobe Barnes, and it slipped my mind there for a second. I was thinking Floyd Central. I was like, they have multiple guys. I can't think of who it is, but yeah, I think that Southern Indiana connection has been ISU's kind of bread and butter here for a little while. And they're starting to turn the corner, I think. They had a lot of momentum, obviously. Jake LaRavia played phenomenal there last year out of LC. Kobe Barnes and Jared Hankins, another pair that made up that 2019 class for them. Obviously, I think none of us are expecting him to go to Indiana State. Being a top, 40, 50 recruit nationally, that he would easily be their top recruit ever, I would have to assume. I don't think it's even close.
Other than Larry Bird, right?
Yeah, and Larry Bird, IU transfer. So it would be phenomenal to Indiana State, but I still think IU and Virginia, maybe North Carolina, are the front runners. I don't think Purdue.
Yeah, really I think it's a 3-horse race between IU, UVA, and UNC.
I really always thought it was a 4-team race, and with Louisville out of the picture
exactly.
Now, I think Purdue with Caleb first. It doesn't make sense for them for him to go there, and they just don't have the room either.
Yeah, they only have one other scholarship remaining in 2021, so that'd be quite odd to see him there. But that's the recent wrap up with the Silver Creek stuff. And then two, the top prospects in the state for 2021, nonetheless, have any Silver Creek affiliation. But moving on, Forum Tip-Off was just announced yesterday.
And they're the best events of the year. I swear, every year, I can't wait till they announce those. I kind of knew some insight. Obviously, Ellen had kind of previously announced it, but just one of the best events of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, when you look up and down the list, there's always intriguing matchups. And this year, there are quite a few where I'm really fascinated to see what we get out of them. So going top to bottom, 12:30 slot, Perry Meridian versus Carmel. 2 o'clock, Franklin Central versus North Central. 3:30, North Harrison versus Bar Reeve. 5 o'clock, Southport versus Gary Westside. 6:40, Silver Creek versus Blackhawk, which is a rematch from a year ago. And then the nightcap is 8:20, LN versus Cincinnati Moeller. Let's go one by one and analyze some of these matchups.
Yeah, so starting off Perry Meridian, Carmel, I think Carmel, obviously, I think is probably the team to beat in the North this year. At least they will be probably by the time sectionals roll around. But Perry Meridian's an interesting one. Obviously, with Jaden Taylor, Butler commit, pretty well-known name across the state. But Perry Meridian as a whole, a little shaky at times. Definitely not the biggest contender to come out of the South in 4A. But, the Forum tends to go with those big names versus team quality I've seen in the past.
Very true.
Last year, neither LC nor LN, which were two of the best three teams in the state, made the Forum lineup. So I'm always a little hesitant to wonder how they pick these matchups, but it's an interesting matchup. I think obviously you got to give the upper hand to Carmel, just being absolutely loaded from Pete Suter, Charlie Williams, Woodell. It's up and down. It's just a stacked roster that was peaking right as they canceled the tournament last year.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Carmel definitely has the upper hand in this one. I think part of it, like you said, it's the prospect thing, and it's no slight to Perry Meridian, but I feel like Jaden Taylor has been known, but after he committed to Butler, he hasn't really gotten a ton of shine. Like Pierce Thomas, who's another Butler commit, obviously gets a lot more attention. And then DJ Hughes recently committing over the summer, the other 2021 Butler commit. Him playing for LN, being a powerhouse MIC program, those two get a lot of the attention by comparison to Taylor. So it'll be a good chance for Taylor to showcase his skills, and for those that aren't aware of him, get his name out there.
Yeah, he definitely kind of doesn't get a benefit from playing on a very good team at all, whereas Pierce Thomas and DJ Hughes playing on two of the top 10 teams in the state. So
exactly,
maybe this is his time to break out and really, really put a name out there.
For sure, and he's gonna have a great opportunity to against a team like Carmel. Looking at the second matchup, we've got an interesting one in Franklin Central versus North Central. And I say interesting because, before any sort of transfers, I think this matchup would have been really awesome. But both of Franklin Central stars, Javon Small, who is a friend of the pod on a few episodes ago, 2021 point guard who's been blowing up this summer with 7 D1 offers and a lot of high major interest. And then Jalen Hooks, right now the consensus top recruit in 2023 in the state, is now in Addicts. So with them both out of the program at Franklin Central, it makes us believe that they probably selected this matchup prior to those transfers happening. But North Central, on the other hand, having Leland Walker, one of the most exciting players in the state, junior point guard, I would say it's pretty safe to pick that the Panthers would, give Franklin Central the works.
Yeah, I assume that North Central is probably one of the more late ads. Obviously, when you have a guy like Leland Walker, now paired with, Jason Gardner as head coach, former star at North Central, and it's an enticing team to have in there. I think it's one of the teams that's probably going to be on the rise this year. They have a couple other, Jalen Clark, another 2021 guy, I believe it's 2021.
Yeah, he's a 21.
And then they have a transfer coming in from Avon, whose name off the top of my head I can't remember. 6'7" guy, 2023 class, I believe. So the prospects for North Central, very, very good. They haven't played this event since 2017 or 2016, I guess.
Yeah.
With Chris Wilkes and them blew the doors off of Romeo Langford. So a long time coming back for them. But yeah, the Franklin Central one, it doesn't make any sense to me. definitely of any central. Obviously, those two guys are there. That would make perfect sense. It would be a heck of a matchup.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are even better teams in Central Indiana that you could showcase. I don't know what Chris Byers' team's going to look like without those two guys. Those are obviously the two best players. So this one's interesting. We'll see. Maybe there's a chance for a last-second change. We've seen that before. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think,
Yeah.
but a team like North Central, you're going to have to find a team that's outside of this area that they haven't played already this year.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's some of the reason that they're holding off on that is because they do play a lot of the teams that we likely would want to see them play.
100%. And going back to your point about the transfers, and seeing matchups change before, just a few years ago in the event in 2018, Center Grove played La Lumiere with Keon Brooks, but before Keon ended up at La Lu, he was at Northside, and the match was originally set for Northside Center Grove. So potentially we see a change.
The same thing happened in the Hall of Fame Classic. They 2 years ago dumped Mishawaka Marion after Jaden Ivey transferred and picked up Heritage Hills, I think, or one of those two. I don't know those schools. But yeah, it is possible for events to drop them, but I don't think they want to change around any of their matchups. And if that case is, you have to find North Central team outside of the MIC, outside of Central Indiana, that they aren't playing already, because you don't want them to play repeat teams. That doesn't really make any sense.
True. Moving on to the 3:30 matchup, we've got North Harrison and Bar Reeve. Got to get a small school matchup in there, and this one
is a phenomenal one right there.
Yeah, it is. It's plenty intriguing with the big man matchup with Kurt Hof and Langdon Hatton, recent William and Mary commit. This one should be fun, and I think it's a really good thing that the forum every year makes sure to include the small schools to make sure it's not just representative of 4A.
Yeah, I think it's trying to represent the state of Indiana as a whole. And you look at Bar Reeve, which is an amazing program historically, and North Harrison, who's been on the rise. Obviously, they're a phenomenal girls program, but their boys team obviously really on the rise lately. And with like Hatton, that's obviously a can't miss matchup. It kind of sucks, we haven't seen yet how the attendance policies are going to work right now. But in a normal year, Bar Reeve, they travel really, really well. So I think that would have been a packed gym. Two small schools from Southern Indiana coming up to Indianapolis. The only other time they get to do that is when they play in the state title. Really looking forward to this matchup. It's like a bunch of people in Central Indianapolis. They never get to watch these Southern Indiana kids outside of a potential state title game. So bringing Bar Reeve, bringing the culture and the history behind that program at a school like North Harrison to Southport, I think a bunch of people in Indianapolis will be really hyped to see that matchup.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a blast. Looking at the 5 o'clock, this one is a little interesting too. Host school Southport, which usually plays in one of the earlier times, is going up against Gary Westside with Jalen Washington, who's one of the best players in the country in 2022, a top 15 guy, and then Kamari Peterson, who's a 2021 guard with 3 D1 offers. Talent certainly is teetering more with Westside.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, Southport started to play really well towards the end of the season last year. Still ended up getting knocked out of the sectional, but AJ Dantzler, Anthony Ballback, sophomores, a bunch of young talent here. It'll be interesting to see how Jalen Washington responds. Obviously, he hasn't played a high school game since he was a freshman after tearing his ACL. And, I mean, I don't know how completely back into it he has been, given, A, the COVID break, and B, the recovery from a torn ACL. But this is one of those, really, really fun teams from, northern Indiana, especially like the Gary area, the South Bend area. We often never get those teams every once in a while. And this is one of those, like, potentially very, very good squads in 4A. And people often forget, this is a 4A team right here. Like, this team can do a lot of damage if they get hot at the right time. So this might be a team that we potentially see down the road in a semi-state, maybe even a state title if, Jalen Washington, Peterson, Mason Nicholson, they all play at the same level that we all know they're capable of. But obviously you got to look at it and credit Southport, for taking on this challenge right here. That's all you want to have to do as a young squad, Eric Brand squad. How that goes for Southport, but obviously Gary Westside, loads of talent in that team.
Yeah, relating this a little bit to the Perry Meridian one, kind of like for different reasons, obviously injuries being the case. This is a chance for Jalen Washington to show, his skill and his, prowess in the Indy area because he's, all the way up north in Gary. So, a lot of people know the name, but they don't know the game. They don't know the face to this kid. So this could be a really good opportunity for him to, assert himself.
And there's going to be a bunch of IU fans, likely in attendance. So it's always nice. IU fans always love to see those potential recruits. And a guy that's regarded, top 15 nationally. Obviously, he's going to have his fair choice of schools, already does. But, this might be one of the lone times that IU fans can actually see him in a more central location. So
exactly,
it's a really, really good chance for him. And for a guy like Kamari Peterson, who is teetering on that mid-major level, this is a chance for him to blow up a little bit too.
Good point. Looking at the 640 matchup, I think this might be my favorite one. This is going to be a lot of fun. Fort Wayne Blackhawk versus Silver Creek, the rematch from a year ago. Last year, Silver Creek, I believe, won by 4.
78-74, I think.
Yeah, I knew they won, but just getting confirmation there that it was a 4-point win. But I mean, you look up and down, and this is so fun, good.
The crazy part is usually when you get these like smaller school matchups, it's like they each have one guy. It's not the case. You got 3, maybe 4 or 5 Division I players here in this game between a 3A and a 2A school. Obviously, we talked a lot about Jacobi and Trey Kaufman. They have a couple freshmen coming in that people are really, really high on down there. And then you look at Blackhawk, who has just consistently turned out talent here in the last couple of years with Zane Burke and Marcus Davidson.
Yep.
To go along with first. I mean, that's a heck of a senior core right there. So, this is shaping up to be a phenomenal matchup. I really hope we get as many fans in the arena for this one as possible because, this matchup was amazing last year, and I think it has the chance to be even better this year.
It's so good because it's like storybook in a way. Obviously, we didn't get to see the finishes last year in the tournament, but in 2019, Silver Creek, 3A state champs, and then Blackhawk at the time was 1A state champs, and now they're pretty much still defending state champs in each of those classes, getting to play once again, and with Kaufman and First both being top 50 recruits in the country, and Lander now reclassified at IU, this is basically a battle for Mr. Basketball in this game, and if First is already going to Purdue, but if Kaufman ends up picking IU, it's an IU Purdue theme as well. It's just perfect up and down the board.
Both of these teams are likely going to win the state title. You can't tell me that there's anybody more favored to win it. And they're both going to go relatively untested or unfazed the rest of the year. So, maybe this is like the, like you said, the turning point, like maybe if Kaufman has a really good game, maybe that's his upper hand in the Mr. Basketball race. First, outduels him, maybe that's his upper hand. So you never know how this one could really swing the favor of Mr. Basketball. But yeah, man, this is they got this one right. If they didn't get any of the other ones right, they definitely got this one right.
Absolutely. And the 641 might be my favorite, but the 821 is going to be a lot of fun too.
Oh my goodness.
We've got Jared's Lawrence North going up against the out-of-state Cincinnati Moeller. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time there's been an out-of-state team since 17 when Pickerington North and Jerome Hunter came.
Yep, that would have been – yep, and then a couple East St. Louis played in 15, I think, with Jeremiah Tillman. So,
yeah.
That was I think those are the only couple of times, but they always like to get either like a private school or a school out of state that's close with IU connections. That doesn't really help. It doesn't really hurt them there.
So there you go. And you look at the rosters here, and Lawrence North, as we know, loaded. DJ Hughes, as mentioned before, 2021 Butler commit. The big man will end up getting to guard Cincinnati Moeller's star and Logan Duncombe, a top 100 center who's an IU commit. So I'm sure there will be plenty of IU fans that will, really take this chance to come see their future big men come play in the Indy area, which is so rare. And then not only them, Lawrence North having CJ Gunn, a top junior in the state, who will end up going pretty much anywhere he wants, high major.
They've already got an IU offer. Purdue's probably not far behind there.
Yep.
Kansas State. And then obviously Shamar Avance too, 2021 guy,
Exactly.
who's really teetering on that high major level, like on that borderline right there. He's had a phenomenal summer. So, and potentially, maybe Donovan McCauley might still be playing basketball. IU football recruit, Omar Cooper, another football recruit. So there's no lack for talent there in that game at all. And obviously, I'm not as familiar with Cincinnati and Moeller, but they're always regarded as one of the top basketball programs in all of Ohio. If I'm not mistaken,
they were back-to-back state champions in 18-19, and they very well could have made it 3 and 20.
So those are two programs that don't lack for history and don't lack for talent either. So I'm always glad to see. I love to see these out-of-state battles. Because it's always nice to see test your power against some of the other states' best. So I never mind having like the one out-of-state program in this thing because a couple of years ago, like we talked about with Jerome Hunter, them playing South Bend Riley was a phenomenal, very very heated game.
Yes.
I don't think we'll be seeing Pickerington North back anytime soon.
No, we will not.
Based on comments made by their coach afterwards. But nonetheless, it's nice to see a team like Moeller with some IU connections and just a lot of talent coming to play. One of the state's best teams, if not the best team, in the nightcap, 8:20 prime time. It's a good way to cap off this event. The last two games are really what makes this event so special because, and I predict this. You're looking at on this one day. You're going to watch. My prediction is you're going to watch all 4 state champions this year. You're going to watch Bar Reeve. You're going to watch Silver Creek. You're going to watch Blackhawk. You're going to watch LN. And even if it's not LN, it could be Carmel.
Yeah.
So, you're still looking at another state championship. Gary West, who says they can't make a run,
Exactly.
You got 3 of the top 10 teams in 4A playing, and North Central is not far off being a top 10 team either. And then you've got the absolute favorites in 1A, 2A, and 3A all playing. So, come back to me in March, but I really think that those are the 4 best teams in each class right there, and they're all playing in one day, and they're quite literally in like back-to-back-to-back games. So
yeah, it's gonna be a blast, and I'm really excited. And these matchups, they are what they are. But Jared and I certainly have some thoughts and some teams that we'd like to see going up and down the board. The first one that comes to mind that kind of surprises me that didn't get a bid, Homestead. I believe the last time Homestead was in this was when Caleb Swanigan was around.
I believe, which would have been like
that was
around
2014,
first year, maybe
15.
First or second year of this event.
Yeah.
Year.
And so, with Homestead, not only do you have Luke Goody, an Illinois commit, and has been a known commodity around the state for years, but you add in transfer Fletcher Lawyer, who, is a certain high major prospect. He's got offers from Michigan, Purdue, Nebraska, among others. And, that is going to be quite the duo to see. And they always try to include, teams a little bit outside of the Indy area for, fans to see who aren't, having a chance to get up there. So I was a little surprised about Homestead. And then another one was Warren. Malik Stanley and Deontay Davis, that's going to be another duo that's new and people are going to want to see 2 buckets. It's really amazing to me. I know you mentioned earlier, but the fact that LC, especially last year or even the year before with Deontay, Laravia, Dre, Nigel, how did that team never get, in that event?
And I think, 2 years ago, they did play in the Hall of Fame Classic. So
that's true.
There's sometimes there has to be scheduling implications because you can only play a certain amount of games. But who's to say that you can't? LC plays, they play like Bishop, Dwenger. I'm like, why do you need to play Dwenger? Take him off the schedule for a year, or take one of these other Indy area teams that you're just going to whoop up. They play like Metropolitan or something. Who was the team they beat last year at the beginning of the year by like 100? It was some like 1A school.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember exactly who it was.
Like Shortridge, maybe. It was one of those teams that they just beat the mess out of. I'm like, you guys couldn't dump them and maybe put in a good word for your team to go play in the Forum and play some solid program from outside the area.
Yeah.
But I don't know what Warren's scheduling looked like. I don't know if they ever reached out to Warren, but I was like, Deontay Davis and Malik Stanley, you have two other Indiana area teams that are not as good in Franklin Central and Perry Meridian.
Yep.
You have Deontay Davis, who is already holds an IU offer, and I believe he either might hold a Purdue offer or will be soon. Yeah, this guy can go anywhere he wants as well. So I don't. If it was up to me, I think I would want to see Warren in there. That's for sure.
And then any other teams that you thought deserved a spot?
I really wanted to see Addicts play Gary Westside.
That would have been
seeing
fun.
Jalen Washington versus Jalen Hooks, seeing Sean Ware, Donovan Barnett, and then obviously Mark Peterson, Jalen Washington. I think that would have been a heck of a matchup. That's two historically very, very good programs. Obviously, Addicts' history dates well back, and they're as much of a threat in 4A as Lawrence North is, and as much of a threat as Warren is, because that sectional is, once again, can go any direction it wants to go outside of LC and Tech. So I would like to see them, and I would like to see Blake Wesley get a shot to play down here.
Yeah.
Riley has played in it before, has done well in it before. I think if you bring them down, that would have been a fun, that's another guy, potential IU Purdue guy. Who knows where he's going to end up, that you could throw them in there too. So obviously I like the set of matchups. I think obviously there's three that are better than the rest, but you have a bunch of good teams, a bunch of good talent. They usually hit on most of the matchups. Obviously the small school matchup between North Harrison and Bar Reeve is phenomenal. Glad they have that. But the final two of the day are the headliners and the ones that hopefully a lot of fans can get to see. We'll see what things look like in December, but fingers crossed that this event can go on unscathed and that we can see all those teams play, because that day of basketball, just sitting in Southport Fieldhouse, I've done the whole day before, which was a long day to say the least. But it's a just fun day. Southport Fieldhouse is one of the best gyms in the state and in the country. Bunch of talent, bunch of fans. You get to meet some new people. It's never a bad event to have, so I'm glad that they have this each and every year. It is a fun day of basketball.
Absolutely. I think that covers about everything. It's been a good time, and I wish it was already December so we could go to this event. But until next time, this has been Jackson Yeary alongside Jared Rigdon. We'll be back soon for more.